Next up, now that we've talked about this basic sound stuff, let's talk about these important words that we need to know in order to get here, here, and tie it all together. Okay, first we have a syllable. Now, what is a syllable? A syllable is basically a unit of sound or a unit of pronunciation that contains a vowel. So it could just be a vowel by itself. We have the article a, often pronounced and it's actually not all that common just to have a single vowel as a word, but it could be. If we say the word, like we saw earlier, we saw bond, B-O-N-D. So here we have 1, 2, 3, 4 basic sounds, b, a, n, d. So it's 4 basic sounds, individual sound units, but this is all one syllable because we have the one vowel, and a consonant by itself cannot be a vowel, at least in English. So if you just have a t, it's a sound, it's not a syllable. Are you sufficiently confused? Are you confused enough yet? It's okay. If some of this seems a little weird or confusing, we're going to be using a lot of these terms throughout the course with lots of examples. And so anything that you don't understand now, you will definitely understand as we continue forward. This is just a basic introduction so that we have all of this down in one place, and you can come back and refer to it if you need to, but this will also help prepare your brain for learning through repetition in future videos. So that's a syllable, sound unit. So bond is 1 syllable, about is 2 syllables. We have the 2 vowels here. We can have 3 syllables, tomorrow. Lots of letters, lots of basic sounds. Tomorrow. Tomorrow. Vowel sound, vowel sound, vowel sound. Okay. So 3 syllables, we can have 4 syllables, 5 syllables. Most words in English tend to be between 1 and 3 syllables, so that's what we'll see a lot of. But there are quite a few words that are 4 syllables, 5 syllables, maybe 6 syllables. We won't worry about that right now. Next, stress. This is actually one of the single most important points that we'll be talking about in this video and throughout the entire course. Super, super important. Now, what is stress? Very simply, stress is what goes up and what goes down in terms of the loudness or the pitch or the length of a particular syllable, right? So now that we know what a syllable is, we can talk about stress. So we have stressed and unstressed. Un is another prefix that makes a word negative, so this means not stressed. So you can see stressed is up, unstressed is down. That's the general idea. Many languages have syllables and stress, maybe all languages, I don't know. I can't say that for sure, but all the languages that I know, and particularly English, have syllables and stress. So for example, in the word about, it's very poorly written, we have and bout. So we have our 2 syllables, so syllable check. Now the stress, what's the stress? In this case, and get my red marker here, is not stressed, it's going to go down, and bout is going to be stressed, it'll go up, right? And you can hear that, about. So the is very small and short and fast, and bout is louder, longer, higher pitch, bout. If we try to switch this, it would be about. That is pretty much not understandable in English, which is one reason this is so important. Now, some languages work a bit differently. So if you speak Japanese, for example, a Japanese speaker, and in fact many Asian speakers learning English, they tend to be very flat or monotone, one monotone. So it's very flat. And so they'll say like about, it's like even, about. We don't want that. English depends on this up and down. If you speak a language like Spanish, for example, then, which we'll talk about more in a second, but you're gonna have something like this, where if you say canción, so we have the stress mark in this particular sound to mark it. It's just Spanish spelling rules, but we have canción, and the stress pattern is canción. Now, another way to look at this, instead of looking at it as down, you can kind of look at it as like flat, or like this one is like flat. It's like it's just not stressed. In English, we are going to use the down because, as we'll see later, there's actually an extra step to this that is very important in English. But you can say canción, canción, canción. And so this might seem very similar between Spanish and English. If you speak a language like Spanish, Spanish has its own stress rules, but it actually works very differently, as we'll talk about when we get over here. Okay. So that's the basics of stress and not stressed. Now we need to talk about content words and function words, which again, will come back to these 2 points. That's why we're doing it in this order. Now, a content word, what do you think a content word would be? Why is it called a content word? Well, I'll give you some examples. So we have the word dog. We have the word apple. It's 2 syllables. We have the word big. We can also say eat, the verb, to eat. Or we can maybe say quickly. So if you'll notice, what kind of word is this? Is it a noun, a preposition? It's a noun, right? Okay, dog. Apple, it's a noun. Big, that's an adjective, right? A word that describes. Eat, of course, that's a verb. Quickly, so quick is an adjective, right? He is quick, describes him. Quickly, we usually add ly to make an adverb, which can describe an adjective or a verb. So he eats quickly. All right. We should know this by now. If you don't, that's okay. I will have videos about that in the future. These words are all content words. Why? Because they tell us the content of the sentence. Don't think of them as important words, although they usually are very important because they tell us the content. But sometimes the other types of words, like prepositions or the articles the and a, sometimes those can be very important depending on the context. So dog is a content, right? It's a thing. So if I say, I like dogs, okay, dogs, that's what I like. If I just say, like dogs, and I point to myself, like dogs, you understand what I'm saying. If I use these 2 words, and I say, maybe even I'm holding an apple, right? I say, eat apple, eat apple. And it sounds like a question, which we'll come back to. You can tell I'm asking you, do you want to eat the apple? So I don't even have all those other words, and you can still understand, eat apple, that's the content. If I just say, It. I'm talking about the apple. It, I-T, it. Okay, sure, you can see the apple, but if I just say it, that's a pronoun. It doesn't refer to anything without a reference. So, or if I just say, randomly, I just say the, or the, that's full pronunciation, the, T-H-E. The what, right? So those other types of words, prepositions, articles, pronouns, those are function words. The key here is when we talk about the syllables, and particularly in English with the type of language it is, which we're going to come over here in a second and discuss that. Dog is stressed, big is stressed, quick is stressed, eat is stressed. The li here is not stressed. Apple, we have two syllables. Apple, apple, apple. Here's the thing, with a content word, if it is one syllable, this is one of those rare rules in English that have no exceptions at all. So this is a very good rule, and it will help you a lot. If a content word is one syllable, like dog or big or eat, it will be stressed. No exceptions. No exceptions at all. If I say, I like dogs, I'm never going to say, I like dogs. I like dogs. Right? You can't even hear it. Dogs, dogs. Okay, what are you saying? That's why it's louder, it's longer, because it's a content word. We want to hear it. If you have more than one syllable, like apple or quickly, in this case, both the first syllables are stressed. But we can have a word, for example, tomorrow, which we just saw a little while ago. That's an O, not an E. And this is three syllables, but here it's tomorrow, tomorrow. So it's going to be stressed here, that goes down, that goes down. If you try to mess with that, you say tomorrow, tomorrow, or tomorrow, tomorrow. You can't even really recognize it as the same word. If I say, I'll see you tomorrow, like, what? I don't understand you. Now, with two syllable words, it could be that the first syllable is unstressed and the second syllable is stressed. This is where it gets a little more complicated. So if it's one syllable and it's a content word, it will always be stressed. Easy. If it is more than one syllable, 2, 3, 4, it doesn't matter. If it's more than one syllable, at least one syllable in that word will be stressed, guaranteed. But there's not a guaranteed rule of which syllable is stressed. That's the hard part. So that's why we really want to train your ears to the stress of English so you can actually hear it instead of just guessing, right? Instead of, oh, is it apple, apple, right? Some people might say it that way and think it's fine, but it's not. That's not how we say it. So we say apple, apple. Now there are some rules that generally work here. I think it's nouns are usually stressed on the first syllable and verbs would usually be stressed on the second syllable or something like that. We'll discuss that more in a later video, but that's the point of that is it's not a 100% guaranteed rule, just like here with the spelling patterns, there's no guaranteed rules, but there's common patterns. So if we move on to the function words and how they work with stress, so now we know what a content word is, we know how the stress pattern works. With a function word, function words are by default or normally not stressed if they are one syllable. So we have the preposition to, we have the article the or we have preposition on, the pronoun I or pronoun you. And again, it might be tricky that you might think these are content words because they seem important, right? Oh, I or you, right? If I say your name, that would be a content word. That's a proper noun. But if I just say you, do you like it? It's actually not. It's a function word. So pronouns, prepositions, articles, all the little grammar words, these are function words. Now, all of these are one syllable. So normally they will not be stressed. Now, because English is stress timed, which we're going to get to in a quick second here, because it's that type of language, you can make these stressed, right? With the content words, you can't just change the stress of a two-syllable word. It doesn't work. With these single-syllable function words, if you have a specific reason in a specific context, it is possible to emphasize these words, because you can emphasize any word in English, in an English sentence, but you have to have a good reason to do so. So for example, with I, if I say, I like dogs, okay, I like dogs. Now I is not stressed, right? I like dogs. Like is stressed, dogs is stressed. I like dogs. I like dogs. Okay. But let's say, for example, you think that Tom likes dogs. My friend Tom, right? He likes dogs. But Tom doesn't like dogs. I like dogs. See what I did? I say, oh, no, it's not Tom. I like dogs. So I give I this special stress, and it becomes stress, but it's to emphasize in that specific case. So you can stress those words, but you need a very specific reason to, based on the context and what exactly you want to say. If it is a function word with more than one syllable, then just like with the content words, at least one syllable will be stressed. Guaranteed. There's no exceptions to that. So when we say about, as we saw earlier, this is not stressed, this is stressed. About. Okay. A lot of these function words are just one syllable, but right, we have a number of prepositions that are 2, maybe 3 syllables. We have about, around, under, etc., etc. So generally you don't have to worry about that, but these are pretty common words. Again, which one, like which syllable is the stress syllable? There's no solid rule on that. But for example, about, same with around, but if we say under, so it's actually under, so that one goes up and then down. So the point here, the main point here to take away, content words are the content. Function words are just the little words in between that might be important, but they're usually not stressed if they're single syllable. If a content word is a single syllable, it is stressed, guaranteed. If a function word is single syllable, it's most likely not stressed unless you have a special reason to stress it. Multiple syllable words, 2 or more, it doesn't matter if it's a content word or a function word. That's the good piece of news here. If you see more than one syllable, you know that at least one syllable will be stressed. You just have to hear which syllable it is. All right. Now, with that knowledge and this knowledge, you now know a lot about English that I would say most English learners probably don't. And this is very key, critical, important information in order to improve your pronunciation, but also, very importantly, your listening skills, because we have to open your ears.